the connected era, information is always at your fingertips. What makes your message stand out? In this series, we are going to meet a diverse range of people whose messages are influencing the masses. Let's find out how. In this episode, we are going to have an insightful conversation with an amazing man, an amazing person that I am a big fan of, Joseph Rodrigues. Joseph uncovered his passion for entrepreneurship when he was very young, at the age of 15 years old. After hitting a ceiling on his entrepreneurial growth, he dedicated 10 years in corporate America, learning about systems, processes, and big businesses building and management methodologies. In 2009, he left corporate and with a wealth of experience and understanding, he connected back to his entrepreneurial roots and he started his IT business, which he grew to service 50 plus clients in Toronto, Canada area. After a few years, he began selling of his clients to other IT firms and he started an amazing YouTube channel based on his deep passion for sharing valuable information, experiences with other entrepreneurs. A few years later, his YouTube channel is just skyrockets in popularity, turning his art and labor of love into successful business with multiple revenue streams. Welcome to Goy Connect, Joseph Rodrigues. Finally, we have you here. It's an honor to have you here with us, connecting all the way from Toronto, Canada, connecting to our
Actually, I'm in California right now.
Oh, okay, so California.
I'm all over the place, so I understand.
Yeah, that's correct. That's true. Yeah. Well, thank you for connecting from California then. And connecting to our space of Gallery of Ideas, a space where we try through insightful conversations to give to our communities an opportunity to learn from brilliant minds, creative souls, people like yourself, people that are creating value in our society. And today we're very excited to have you here to learn a little bit more about your story, about your drive, and to absorb a little bit of your knowledge and wisdom. So thank you for joining us and welcome, Joseph.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on here. I've been excited to be on. I know we talked about this last year and I've been anticipating it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's true. So Joseph, the first question that, actually we talked about you with different people here in Barcelona. And I actually got some of the questions from the audience that I really wanted to ask you this question. So the first one, tell us a little bit more about your background, your fascinating life, and what pushed you to get into the entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, so I grew up very entrepreneurial. I knew it deep down inside that I was an entrepreneur. It's just I didn't have the confidence to actually, build upon that foundation at an early stage. But when I was 17 and 18 years old, I did do some things with the internet. And I was getting these checks sent to me. And it was weird because I had to go to the bank and open up a bank account. I didn't tell my family because no one believed it. Everyone thought I was just kind of playing around on the computer. And I was getting these checks sent to me because I'd create these like passive income business with like advertising and so forth. But I didn't have the mentorship. I really didn't even know what entrepreneurship was. So I just kind of stopped it and I went down the route. I ended up actually dropping out of high school. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that publicly, but because I had a difficult time learning, but I also learned at a later stage that my learning style was different. And we can talk more about that in a moment. But what ended up happening was I ended up getting a corporate job very early. Actually, I was almost 20 when I got a corporate job. I was really young. And I learned the very important elements of dealing and the ability to communicate effectively. So I was able to communicate how I had really good computer background skills and so forth. So they brought me in and that taught me a lot of things about business, about productivity, about management. And I invested a lot of time in corporate. And, I didn't end up going the entrepreneurial route. I ended up going the corporate route. But then I got kind of, you could say, haunted by two books that I read. It was The Alchemist.
Which ones?
Yeah, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Oh, a Brazilian one. Okay.
And The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. So Alchemist talks about, chasing your passion and chasing your dream. And it rekindled the flame in me about entrepreneurship. And at that time, I had bought my own house. I had a motorcycle, I had a car. I was doing well in corporate. And I worked really hard. I put long hours and just worked my way up in corporate. But I felt this drive to leave it and start a business. And the 4-Hour Workweek was talking about passive income businesses and all this stuff that I was kind of dabbling with 10 years prior to that. And I'm like, whoa, I guess people are doing this to a higher scale now. And they have this cool lifestyle where they get to travel and they create valuable businesses that, you know, benefit the lives of others. And they have a lot of control of the dynamics and all these exciting things. Long story short, I ended up leaving and I started out with an IT business and I grew that and got it up to about 50 clients. And I started selling off my clients. And in 2013, I reduced everything to living out of a backpack because my ex-girlfriend at the time, was from Austria, and I went to go live in Austria for a while. So I reduced everything to living out of a backpack, and I wanted to figure out what I was going to do next. So that was the genesis of the YouTube channel. Actually, the first video was the living out of the backpack video. So that's the rough background, like condensed story of how I got to where I am right now with the YouTube channel.
And talking about your YouTube channel, how did you, what was the main drive to create the channel that you have today, which is very successful, and you have so many admirers, so many followers, so many people that admire you so much. I'm one of them. But big fan. So what was the drive? How did you get to that point where you said, okay, I have to do this, and this is what I need, and that's the process that I have to follow?
Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of experimenting. Like that's one of my key things. You got to try a lot of things. And when I got out of the IT area, I got out of it because I wanted a more remote based business and I wanted to be able to do things. And I was trying to figure out what to do. So I was trying a whole bunch of things. So I made the minimalism video and I thought I was going to get into the minimalism niche and talking about that because it really helped me with focus and concentration and resourcefulness, which is something that I'm really big on. And I started doing all these like kind of random videos figuring out, and I started doing these book discussions because I'm like, what if I share my experience, my business experience, and what I had from corporate as well as in entrepreneurship through these book discussions? What would happen? And that was the genesis of that, because what would happen was people would send me messages and say, those are great book discussions. I love how you share your insights and perspectives. I would love it if you would do this book and that book and this book and so forth. And that was like in the earlier stages when I had less than a few hundred subscribers.
Wow. It's just like, you know, watching your channel today, the way it's, you know, the way people interact with you every time you release a video, to watch all these hundreds of comments, hundreds of people from all over the world. No, it's so beautiful. I get touched just reading people's comments.
It's interesting to see how things evolved. I mean, you know, in retrospect, you know, Steve Jobs had a really good quote. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So what's interesting is that if you learn core business skills, communication skills, all the important elements of business and connecting with others and so forth, and you keep just working on yourself, and then you do things, you can easily identify what is going to work and how to pursue that till it gets to a higher and higher level. So I recognized at a certain point that, you know, I got to start paying more attention to that. And I was doing these other things like consulting, I was doing affiliate deals, I was doing all these different information products I was creating for productivity and so forth. And then I recognized the importance of diversification too. Like, you know, you can do like 10 or 20 different things, and then one or two of those things will pick up traction, and then you'll recognize that the traction is building. So it would make sense to maybe reduce some of the other things you're doing and put emphasis on this. And that was really what happened over the last few years. But I think one of the big realizations for me of that it was going to lead into something big was when I was in Austria. Actually, I made a video, which is still on my channel, which was in one of the earlier formats I was explaining video content, or I was just playing around with. And it's called 5 Insights from a Podcast. The concept was essentially 5 insights from any podcast I listened to that was something that I believe would be valuable for the listener. And I did a discussion on I Love Marketing podcast with the Jeff Moore. Jeff Moore actually found that video. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, you know, he found the video, and the next thing you know, he brings me in and he hires me as a consultant, flies me down to LA, and all these doors started opening up. And I realized that, wow, you know, it's amazing just how much reach and the power of YouTube or just social media in general. And it's probably worth investing more time looking at other opportunities in this area as the next business that I was going to get into. So that's what was going on with that.
And I have to add something else as well, the power of your content. Because you can have, you know, there are many millions of sites and different channels in the YouTube, but I guess if you have a weak content, you know, that's going to be, you know, just something else out there. I think your content is so special, and I'm sure you're going to get to millions and millions of subscribers, because as people get to know you and see everyone that introduce you, your videos and your channel, people just, they get addicted to you. They can stop watching and listening to your book reviews and your study notes. So I believe your content is key, Joseph. It's really important. Obviously, you know that, and you keep improving it, and because you are a very critical, with yourself, you keep looking for that improvement.
Well, thanks for endorsing me and for supporting me on the journey. Yeah, I appreciate it, and recognizing. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Joseph, there are many, many people talking about you, writing reviews, doing many things. I just collected few of these comments that I read in your site and on your YouTube channel. And you have people saying things about you like this: you are a genius. You are helping so many people. You are changing people's lives. Your work is a valuable gift to society. Your work is mind-blowing. I mean, with all this, how do you feel, and how, I mean, from all this gratification of this work and having these people around you telling all these things, people that don't even know you, how do you feel? And it has been always like this? Tell us a little bit more.
You know, I started to get earlier indicators that what I was creating was helping others. Like, they would leave comments like that. So what I would do is like with anything I do in business or anything I do in life, is I study the feedback. Like, I'm a big fan of the direct response marketing principles, which is essentially means that you put out something and you see how the marketplace responds. And then what you do is that based on the response, you continue to amplify what's working, strip away what's not working, and so forth. So number one, it was very, exciting and humbling and very encouraging that I was getting this kind of feedback. And number two, it also helped me realize what content I needed to create next to add more value. Because I believe the focus when we create content should be about how much we can provide in a concentrate. So even though my videos are very long, I try to fit as much concentrate that I believe will resonate with the audience. So what I do is I connect with the audience. I try to figure out what their pains, their frustrations are, their goals and their desires. And then from there, I'm able to adjust and speak to that, what they're experiencing, provide them the solutions in a way that's not telling them what to do, but it's very conversational with them. It's a very conversational tone. And as a result, they experience behavioral change from that. They take action, they produce results, and they come back with comments like that, which again, just keeps feeding that loop.
Yeah. And what about criticism? I don't know. I never seen anyone saying any bad feedback or bad review, but have you ever received some bad reviews that you thought, this is wrong? I think this person, because not every bad review means they are really actually correct, right? I mean, so many people, they have different tastes, different views, and doesn't mean that what they're saying is correct. But tell us a bit more how you handle criticism.
Yeah, I handle it in a few ways. So number one is I accept any kind of comment, if it's a positive comment or negative comment or a criticism or whatever, because all of it has insightful information that I could use for optimization. Not all my videos are going to resonate with most of my audience. Some videos might resonate more with some of the audience, some videos with the other audience, segment of my audience. And a lot of people find my videos through searching for various topics related to the discussions that I have, and they find my videos, and it might not be what they're looking for. It's in a format that it might not be in the kind of format that they consume information in, and so forth. And what I believe with the negative comments or any kind of criticism that I get, it's really just an indication of my marketing efforts or areas that I need to improve on. And yeah, sometimes, it can be kind of really like harsh criticism and stuff. And I recognize that, with the online world, is that people do express themselves a lot more intensely because that's just how it is, right? Yeah. So there's some seedlings of truth in there. And I don't take all of the criticism and apply it because, someone might have a strong bias towards one way of how they would like my content to be created. And then they'll say, like, so I've had a few that have said, you should shorten your videos, make them like 5 minutes. Why do you talk for like an hour and a half? But I also get a lot that asked me to create 2-3 hour videos. The one I did on the Think and Grow Rich a few weeks ago was almost 3 hours, right? So it depends. Any type of feedback that I get, whether it's positive or negative, I evaluate it based on my business model and the kind of contribution I want to make, the personality of who I am, my style, because I kind of see this as an art as well, and a ton of other variables. And then looking at it from that objective perspective allows you to dissect a lot out of these comments, whether it be positive or negative, which will help you build your content further. That's what I found. Anytime you put yourself out there in a public environment or a public place, you're going to face some sort of criticism. And that just comes with the territory. And I look at this as an exercise too, because it's not necessarily what happens to you, but how you respond to it.
Absolutely.
And it's always important to respond with compassion and recognize that people are in different stages. And some provide criticism from one perspective, some provide it from another perspective. Some have a certain way of providing that criticism. Some people see reality differently, with a very strong polarizing viewpoint. And everybody's entitled to their opinions. And what matters and what is very important to keep in consideration is the audience that you serve, who you are, and the value that you're creating, and your beliefs and your morals and so forth. Now, tons of variables, but it's really how you respond to it that has the biggest impact on, and not just like responding back to the comment, but what you do with the elements that are contained within criticism, and how do you take that and apply it, if applicable, to building the value that you're creating for others.
Correct.
I always think about that.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. So when someone critiques you, it's how you take exactly what you're saying. It really, there's this behavior, emotional behavior that you have to take in consideration. I've heard you say many times that we need to learn how to learn, right? That in many other places out there, people teach you what to learn, but not how to learn. And I'd love to hear more from you on these thoughts, and to see how you expand on this.
Yeah, so we live in a time right now where there's tons of information. Like, we experience information load on a daily basis. What to learn, what area of the subject to learn first, what source to learn from. Like, these are the dilemmas that we have nowadays. Back in the days, you would travel across the world to learn a very specialized skill. Sure. That being said, we have to keep into consideration some of the important practices of accelerated learning. And so we need to look at how we learn, how we study, how we take what we learn and apply. If it's a business or personal development context, are we doing it in the most effective way? Or are we doing it in a way where we're not getting much results, or we're feeling overwhelmed? So we really need to evaluate the learning process. And what's interesting is that we don't actually invest a lot of time in it. And I think nowadays people are investing a lot more time figuring out what are the best ways to learn, what are the best sources to learn from, like all the different kinds of things related to learning how to learn, which is a very broad subject. But I believe it's one of the most important skills you can have today, is to figure out your learning style, and then couple that with some accelerated learning and learning best practices, dedicating some time to actually studying the different learning modalities and incorporating that in whatever skill you're trying to develop, whatever it is you're trying to learn, because that's going to give you results a lot faster. And I find that to be true from my own personal experience.
And Joseph, do you think, because I think of myself as an addicted to learning, I've been always addicted to learning. Do you see yourself a little bit addicted to learning as well?
Yes, I think it's the natural state for the brain to be in, to learn. And if we don't like learning, it might be, at least that was the case for me when I was in school, that we're not learning from the modality that we learn in. And so what's interesting is, I want to share this, is that one of my models for learning that I use in the learning how to learn realm is, it's called the format learning model, format, like number 4, MAT. And it works like this. Okay, there's 4 quadrants, and there's many of these learning models. And I think it's important to incorporate as many as you can until you find the sweet spot that works well for you. 4 types of learners fundamentally. And even though we have overlap in these types of learning, we tend to have a bias for one versus the other. So it's a quadrant essentially. And there's why learners, what learners, how learners, and what if learners. Why learners, interesting, right? Why learners tend to learn to be able to educate others. So they want to learn why something is the way it is. Why? Because they're like the salespeople, right? Salespeople usually want to know why, so they can tell it to somebody else, because that's how they learn. And when they get a lot of why information, they believe they've got a high level of comprehension as to what they're learning. What learners are theoretical breakdown. They like the concepts, the scientific evidence, the supporting data, broken it down into different parts, components that make up the whole, heavy theory, which is also important. We don't want to neglect, but some of those what learners have a strong bias towards that. They're not interested necessarily in the why, but they might be more emphasizing the what. And then there's the how learners, which are usually the technicians. They learn through doing. So those that will get an idea, watch a YouTube video, and then actually go and try it. They'll learn a lot from the hands-on experience of building something. And those are the how learners. And then there's a what if, which is kind of like how I am. Actually, I'm a lot more biased in the what if, which is not a area that's focused a lot upon in school, which is how do you take what you're learning here and apply it towards like making money or business or some of that. So what if learners might be watching this video right now and figuring out how they can take components from what they're watching in this video and integrate it into, maybe they're doing a business where they interview people, or maybe they're going to apply what they're learning here in a way that you never even thought of that they were going to apply to further a result. So when we're studying and we're learning, I think it's important to figure out what quadrant, what part of that we have a bias towards, and learn from that perspective. And then understand that it's also good to diversify all four, but that gives us a huge level of confidence as to who we are as a person and how we see reality.
Oh, that's beautiful. And do you actually teach this? Do you have training programs where you teach this into more depth?
Yeah, I actually have a mind map training program that I created on my site, Online Training for Entrepreneurs, which is about, I think it's like 12 or 13 hours of all these different learning models overlaid and implemented in the process of mind mapping. Because in my videos, I integrate all these in order to be able to learn the information, but also be able to teach. And that's one of the most important elements in there is actually in order to become good at learning, we have to learn how to teach, which again is kind of very polarizing information. We don't often think about that, but if you want to get good at learning, you actually also have to get good at teaching. If you want to get good at teaching, you also have to get good at learning, right? It's a cybernetic loop.
And I remember you said once that you teach what you learn, or no, how was that phrase that you said? You teach what you like.
We always teach the things that we need to learn.
yeah, that's the one.
Oh, that's one of my favorite business.
Things that we want to learn. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Right. What we're passionate about that we teach others is information that we can integrate to a higher degree ourselves. You'll find this to be true with a lot of like consultants and a lot of people in the personal development and business world. You'll find this to be true, and it's not a negative thing. It's actually insightful. It tells us a lot.
It's a wonderful thing. We have also training programs where we teach public speaking and communication. And for me, I'm always the first one trying to understand how can I learn more about communications in every situation, every meeting, everywhere. I'm paying attention to every detail. Aside from the fact that I am completely fascinated for body language and all this is really an area of expertise for me because I'm completely fascinated by since I was a child. But the whole thing of learning more and more, even though I teach that, but I keep just looking for more and more to learn in order to increase more knowledge in our training. So it makes total sense. You cannot teach something that you're not interested in learning. How can you actually even do that? It would be unfair to the people that are with you trying to go through a learning process.
Yes. You're in a very advantageous position because you get access to a lot of these insights and perspectives and different speakers' ways of becoming effective communicators. And then you can take that information and integrate it, improve your own communication skills, attract more people. And it's a very powerful cycle, right?
It is. It's wonderful. So next question. Okay, your main message to the audience. So what would be the main message that you would like to give to people from all your work, from your life experience, something that is very unique that you don't actually mention a lot in your channel because it's not maybe the time and place, but something that you'd like to share with the audience that I'm sure there are many of these people that follow you that are now maybe watching this and will watch maybe in the future. So what would be that message to these people that are, admiring you and following you? Work in your beautiful work.
I like the word resourcefulness. And when I reflected back as to why I was fascinated by minimalism, it reminds me a lot of in when I was young, we grew up in very humble beginnings, and we used to find great joy in things that a lot of people, they had an abundant amount of resources and toys and different kinds of things, but we used to work with what we have and create a lot of joy and stuff like that. And it was a great experience for me because I carried that with me all towards life. And then as I started to get more success in business and be able to afford to do a lot of different things, I maintained that as an exercise because I recognized that in business, or when it comes to books or anything we're learning or anything like that, we don't always get the most out of, not even close. In fact, I don't even think we get more than 20% out of the utilization or effectiveness or the output of whatever it is that we're using the resource. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, for example, one of the things I learned from Jay Abraham, one of my mentors, is that you could take an asset that exists in a business and you could repurpose, multi-purpose, repackage, redistribute. You can offer it on a percentage for this person. You could take that asset. You do all kinds of things with one little element in the business. But if we don't practice resourcefulness, we're not able to see those opportunities that exist. So I think resourcefulness is like the biggest thing that is the most valuable lesson in a time today where we're bombarded with tons of opportunities and tons of resources. We also, in order to be able to work with that, have to value the present. This is very much related to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is a really amazing book. It's about resourcefulness of the moment. Like, this is some amazing stuff. So I like the word resourcefulness.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's a brilliant message to give to everyone. I think when you have that burning desire, which is I'm going to totally use that one because our next event.
You have Napoleon Hill to thank for that one.
I am in love with that one. The thing is, there are many people that say, okay, I'd love to become a singer. I'd love to become a journalist. I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that. But I don't have the right, time. I don't have the right occasion. I don't have the right economic status, so on and so on. And
Yeah.
that's what becomes resourcefulness. If you really want to do something. I remember starting our first event, everyone was thinking for the interviews we did was all like in my living room. There was, no big studio. There was nothing, just a mobile phone and some people holding some lights and you just find a way because you wanted to do something. There's that burning desire of do something. And if you're not resourceful, you're never going to do anything. If you expect that right moments where there's an abundance of money, a perfect location, the perfect actor or situation that is going to take your hand and say, okay, I believe in you, you're never going to do anything, because and I totally agree. I think resourcefulness it's an amazing concept that should be applied in any situation, not only professional, but also in personal life. We have to become more and more and stop with the nonsense that it goes on.
And it's such a fun exercise to practice resourcefulness, to start something and say, how do we maximize the different resources that we're using right now to create this? And also recognize that we might think we're doing it in the best way, but there's infinite amount of possibilities that we're not looking at, and to just sit back and reflect and see if we can see reality from a different perspective, or look at things from a different perspective, like a paradigm. Somebody sees one thing as a obstacle, another person sees it as an opportunity, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's tons of books that are paradigm shifters to get you to look at things differently. Like, one of my favorite books is Jay Abraham's Abraham Mind Shift Challenge. And it's just a whole bunch of different scenarios of utilizing assets in business to create like these sub businesses and so forth. And you just like read a book like that and your brain just starts to fire, and you start to say, oh, not because you want to copy exactly what you're learning, but you think of what you've got and how you can daisy chain what you've got to create something. And it's just amazing. I love that kind of stuff. That stuff gets me really excited.
Me too. And I get excited watching you doing the reviews on that and just listening to you. It's double excitement.
All right.
Oh my goodness. No, it's a gift, because actually that takes me to the next question that we have for you. There are many people that come to me and say, oh, Patty, I know you love reading, and you love knowledge and reading audio, reading books, listening to audiobooks, it's something that has been always with me. But, I can never be really like you, even though I like it, but I don't have the right time. I'm too busy with the kids. I'm too busy at work. And that's the thing. I said, well, there are many other ways. If you don't have, first of all, create some priorities in your life and then do things that are according to your priorities. But I'm sure there are some techniques that people can take, and that's one of the things that you teach as well, that maybe you can help right now telling people how to help these people that are so busy and they see themselves in a situation where they have no time to expand their knowledge, to read more, to be able to learn more other things.
Yes, I believe that we are taught that when you got to read a book, you got to read it from cover to cover. And, I do these workshops through Iris Reading. Iris, Paul Novak, founder of Iris, is one of my friends, and, they're the largest North American speed reading company. And we come across this question a lot when I do these workshops and so forth. But you don't need to read a book cover from cover. It's important to recognize that even if you do read a book from cover to cover, that you're probably only extracting, even, I would say this is being generous, 20% of the information and applying it. So thus would make sense to begin with the end in mind and figure out what you want to get out of the book.
Yeah.
Create a rough mind map of what you want to get out of the book. Then go into the book and pull out the 20% of information by flipping through the pages, looking at the table of contents that is the most relevant for the outcome that you want to create as a result. And pull out that information, read that first, study that first, and then you can even overlay that with the format model when you're taking your notes, integrated into the format model. And that's going to allow you to get through a whole book, get more comprehension out of it. Not when I say get through the whole book, I'm not talking about reading it from cover to cover, but I'm talking about using it in this format. You get a lot out of the book. You go and integrate, you apply it, and then you can decide later if you want to go and build back upon that. But if you do that, you can get through a lot more material. So it's breaking the old paradigm, saying you got to go through cover to cover. And that's one of the most valuable tips that I can give.
You just said something very interesting. You mentioned studying a book. I think many people don't have that relationship with books. I think some people, they think, I'm going to read a book just to, it's relaxed time, or it's a moment to disconnect, right? Like when you watch a movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think very few people look the way, we do. Like if I'm reading this page, I have to take something out. I'm studying, is it a material that I wanted to, it's a kind of information that I wanted to keep, reading for my, or not. We're very selective with the information that we receive. At least I am very selective. So if there is information that I'm like, no, this is not something that is really, there's no space for this right now.
Yes.
So I move quickly. I don't feel the guilt of, I haven't finished the book. Like you said, I haven't started from the beginning to the end and I have to finish. Because I guess, sorry, go on.
Yeah, just exactly what you said. I agree with it 100%. It's shifting your paradigm because look, you only get 24 hours in a day and there's way more information today than has ever been. So the opportunity to find, I'm a huge fan of the Pareto principle, 20% of the information that produces 80% of the results. And even when it comes to why I read and why I learn, it's for application. I don't want to just be theoretical. And I emphasize this a lot on my channel. I say 20% learning, 80% taking action, because the actions you take is going to determine what you need to learn next. And then from there, you can find that really targeted, segmented information that's going to accelerate your understanding. And that's how I built my understanding and level of expertise. So when you go back and you say, like, they call me a genius on my channel and stuff like that, I have an expertise in certain subjects, a broad, very deep expertise in certain subjects because I followed this process. So in those areas, I might have a more than extraordinary knowledge, but there's a lot of areas that I don't have a lot of knowledge in and even a very surface level knowledge in. But I'm also very clear as to how I want to live my life and what my contribution is, my purpose, my passion, and so forth. So I'm okay with not knowing everything. Okay, it's about, for me, knowing what I need to know to create what I want to create, which is the products, the business stuff, the value, the education for other entrepreneurs and so forth. So I'm able to, like that, sift and sort large volumes of information and pull out the most relevant and just keep building upon it that way. And we got to give ourselves permission to do that, because if we don't, we're going to feel overwhelmed. We're going to feel really overwhelmed today because there's analysis paralysis. You've heard of that?
Analysis paralysis, yeah. It's a very common term.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. And with regards, the whole reading process, and I think finding that flow, I mean, you
Mm.
also read the study notes on Mihai Csikszentmihalyi,
Yes.
and I think you have to find that where your skill meets challenge. If, in the case of the books that we're talking about,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, and because I'm also fanatic by this kind of books, um, and find that flow where you say, okay, I'm always looking for that a little bit more, where, I already read this, but I need a little bit more, and
Yeah.
never stop. I said, okay, I read everything and I'm fine. I don't have time, forget it. No? So I think reading is a question to finding your flow in reading as well. Like we
Yes.
do in surf, I surf, like, in Rio, all the kids,
Do
we
you
learn
surf?
how to surf. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Even
I'm
here in
learning to surf.
Barcelona, I have my surfboards, which we don't have waves in Barcelona, but I take the kids on the paddle, the paddle board.
I've been so fascinated by surfing. I got to learn it. I've done some bodyboarding, but I go and run by Redondo Beach here in California.
You are in California, yeah. Come on.
Yeah, it's interesting because I love watching the surfers.
Oh,
The
it's
other day
beautiful.
I was sitting after my run, because I run Tuesdays and Thursdays. I sat in front of the water and I was doing just a very light meditation, and I got to see the surfer in the water. It was so tranquil, and there was a dolphin. It was like jumping.
Oh my
Yeah, it
goodness.
was so beautiful, right? And what's interesting about California is it's very much got that vibe here, right? Like over here, people, like, it's a premium to live here, right? It's not
Oh,
it's this area that I'm in, which is the South Bay, Los Angeles area, and so forth. It costs more to live here, so people got to work hard and they got to make money to be able to enjoy this life here.
yeah.
However, they don't want to do it in a very intense way where they're like stressed. So they maintain, a lot of people, and some people do this better than others. It's a delicate balance I found with the culture here. It's very interesting, of being very smooth and flowing, kind of like a surfer, but at the same time making all the fast moves. So you'll
Yes.
find that as an individual here, you'll do well in a place like this if you can maintain both a smoothness to yourself as well as a very efficient, very focused. Like, you got to be able to do both here, which is why I like it. It's stimulating for my brain.
So when are you going to start getting some classes then? You have to start. We talk a lot about that as well.
Should I? Well, we're talking about if I come down to Barcelona. Should I do it in Barcelona? Should I do it
Well,
in
I can teach you.
California?
Without waves, it's a good way for you to learn. Because in the Mediterranean, it's here, at least in Barcelona, we don't have it. Only if there's a storm.
I totally believe that if I learn how to surf, my videos would get better, because then, like, the flow thing is like a surfing concept, right? Flow.
Oh,
It's
yes,
very
yes.
much a surfing concept.
Well, it is. These guys that are, aside from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, but everyone that is involved in doing all this work on flow, they all somehow they got involved in surf, and there is something in sports, particularly. Obviously, it's applicable to anything, but there's something about surf that really, it's the perfect example, because you need loads of things there, that it needs to be able to have the patience to wait for that wave, and once the wave is coming, you have to have the strength to swim, and then to go down and come back, and then swim again and go back again, and it's it's a constantly skill and challenge non-stop. So it's not something that you just go do once and that's it. Oh, it was great shot of the adrenaline and that's it. No, surf is a continuous. That's why I guess they like to call it more as an example for flow, because it's that process non-stop. So it's beautiful. I will help you if you come to Barcelona.
All right, I'll take you up on that if I'm down there. All right.
All right. Yeah. Joseph, you mentioned the imposter syndrome once in one of the book studies that you did from Austin Kleon. Still Like an Artist.
Yes.
I loved that. It was, I think I listened to that video 5, 6, 10 times. I really enjoyed it. And I realized there are so many people, so talented. So I have close friends and family, that are so talented, and they suffer from that. So what would be your advice to help these people to overcome? Well, first of all, explain a little bit more to everyone that is listening and watching to us about this imposter syndrome, and what would be your advice to overcome that?
So we all have expertise, okay? So even if we don't have a high level of expertise, in contrast to maybe somebody that we admire, we have skills, we have abilities. And a lot of times we don't let those skills and abilities shine because we feel that we don't have the credentials, or for whatever reason. But usually when it comes to imposter syndrome, we don't want to let our abilities shine. We don't want to teach others. We don't want to start the business based on knowing knowing that we can create the results, but we don't do it because we don't have the self-esteem or self-confidence. So it's really, the imposter syndrome is an indication of lower self-esteem and self-confidence. Now it manifests itself in a weird story in our mind, saying that, who am I to do this? Who am I? Right? I don't have the credentials. I don't have the expertise and so forth. But it's important to recognize. Yeah, it's important to recognize that there's a lot of success stories of individuals out there who have contributed. And I'm not talking about just the facade of success, but I'm talking about the contributions that have been made as a result of not having the credentials or not having the formal whatever that goes along the expertise that they have. There are people that just get really high level of mastery in their craft just by going at it day in and day out, 10, 20 years. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of experience, a lot more than others that have gone through maybe a formal education to get it, because they can understand the nuances. And as a result of it, their information, when they put it out there, when they write the books or they do the consulting or they teach on it, is serving to a large degree. And a lot of those individuals experience this imposter syndrome because we're being taught to say that if you don't have this, that you can't do it. And not maliciously you're taught that. It's just that's where it comes from.
The way it was, yeah. The way it was taught to them, and then they just passed on from generations to generations. No?
Yeah, one of the things we do is human nature, right? Is we look around to see what everyone else is doing, and then we're going to base what we do based on that. And has served us for many thousands of years to be that way, because it was very dangerous back in the days to act boldly. You can end up getting killed. I'm talking like thousands and thousands of years ago. And so we've evolved to have these fears in us, and they manifest themselves in all these little stories like imposter syndrome. And some of these fears are valid, because I don't believe that a person can be extremely fearless to the point where they're just not afraid of anything, because then you would just drive randomly on the street. You would.
Yeah, no, that would be insane. Yeah.
Right. So there's a certain degree of fearlessness we need to have, that we need to develop, certain programming that needs to be rewritten in order to produce results. And imposter syndrome is just one of the manifestations of a fear that we have.
Yeah. The thing
fear
is,
of criticism, you could say that's one of the fears, because that's also from Think and Grow Rich. Fear of criticism. Talks
true.
about it.
Yeah. And I guess the whole thing is that fear of being, discouraged, and just not being respected as they wish to or as they wanted to. But actually, there is a very good phrase from Seth Godin. I'm sure you know him. Seth Godin.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. And there is one phrase that I like, that he says, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So I love that, because it really resonates with me. If I do something wrong, I wake up next day and say, well, I tried. Yeah, wasn't really good, was it? Sorry, let's move on. What can I do now?
Yeah.
But if I don't do anything, if I just say, okay, now I'm too afraid to do it, or I'm not ready, I'll just be feeling, I'll regret for the rest of my life for anything, any little thing, doesn't matter. So, and in contrary, there are so many people that I see that I say, please, watch yourself. You are a wonderful singer, or you are a wonderful artist, you are a wonderful engineer. Why don't you really pursue what you want to do? Why don't you believe yourself? And then that's where I was telling you, that I have close friends and families that they just don't see it. And I don't know what else to say to them, because they just don't see it. I'm like, oh, no. It's thank you for the kind words, but no, I'm not that. So it's tough to help, on that.
The interesting thing is that the more we break through our own imposter syndrome, the more we recognize that it was actually just all a facade, and it was just a smokescreen. And so we'll start to see this in others. We're like, it's so easy to do that, and I have to actually take a step back from that, because I train entrepreneurs, and I've been on this journey for so long. And a lot of things that I do right now seem easy to me. But I remember in earlier stages how difficult that was psychologically. So I've done a few scenarios where I would tell an entrepreneur, okay, just do this thing, and then they didn't do it, and I was wondering, like, how could they not do it? I actually had to reflect back and put myself in their place and recognize, in their paradigm, which has evolved for me in this journey, they're still like it's so fearful for them, right? And a lot of times what'll happen is they won't admit it because, one of the things that we do as humans is we always like to bring our best self to the equation. We like to bring the facade, right? So, and when they're around somebody that has a certain level of success and so forth, they're going to put on their best behavior. And you're like, oh, you should maybe consider this thing during the consultation. I'm like, yeah, I'll consider that. I'll consider that. And it sounds like they're considering it, but meanwhile, they're actually petrified inside. They're like, oh, there's no way I can do what he just said. There's just like no way. He's making it easy, but he's crazy. He doesn't know my scenario and stuff. And I think, I learned to recognize that as a coach and consultant and kind of break it back to their level. There's something that I learned from Jeff Moore, who I connected with. Feel, felt, found, which is great.
That's great.
You know about that?
Yeah. I think I heard you say that.
It's not a tactic, but it's a way of expressing empathy towards a person. So it's a good mental model to revert to when we encounter scenarios like that, because we've actually been there before and we've overcome it. So it's like, I know how you feel, and you help them feel understood. I felt that before when I was in your situation, and here's what I found.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I'm more likely to break through that. Yeah.
And that is something very, very smart and thank you for that. Actually, you always impress me with your that's something that you said once, that it's so true, and I'll never forget. You said, I like to take people from where I've been to where I am now. No, there are so many people that that I can help, and I thought that thought was brilliant, because that's what I do as well. Sometimes I wanted to rush and get them quickly to where I'm now, and I just have to respect that the same process that they take me. Maybe it took me a little bit less time, but everyone has their own process. So I have to understand sometimes, and I have to do that self-talk with myself. Okay, wait a minute, don't push it too hard, because you've been there, they're there. Just try to help them with whatever tools you can to get to the place you are. Being a place of security, of being confidence, or whatever it is. But I love that phrase that you said.
And that applies really well to the world of business too, because I like to have a portfolio of deals on the table, and some will move slower than others because of dynamics like that, and some will move rapidly fast. So when you're hedged and you're diversified, you're okay with that, because you don't have all your eggs in one basket and you're dependent on it, because then you're just going to be a disservice to the other person and yourself. So I like using that same metaphor. I'm using the what if again in another area, diversifying your business initiatives and so forth, so that you can operate a lot smoother.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant concept, because another thing from that phrase that you said, I don't remember which book you doing the study notes, but I just kept going back and thinking about that phrase, because following that thought, you said also, you mentioned that sometimes we're looking to someone that is really successful, far away from where we are now, and then we're looking at them and it's like, oh, it's so hard to be there. How can I be there? Maybe I'll never get to that stage, no? So there is still, different spots where you are here and you wanted to become that, and then you wanted to try to help that one that is there. So how do you actually get to that point where you are fine with both, find that there's a process to get there, to that other space, and then help the other ones to get to where you are?
Yeah, I've gone through different phases. I'm a very driven person, and I've always been like that. So I tend to bias more on the side of, oh, I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be there. And I recognized that it actually was not good for me, because it messed up current scenarios, because I'd always be wondering what it was like there, but not valuing here and so forth. So I came up with a good way of being just internally, and just litmus testing, engaging myself to make sure that I'm enjoying both the process and the journey and the micro achievements on the way to that end result. Right. So for example, you can break it down really really granular. For example, when you run a campaign, let's say a marketing campaign, let's say you're doing some paid advertising, right? So you run a paid advertising campaign, and the goal is obviously to bring in sales. So you run the campaign and you put in like $100 and you didn't get any sales. Well, a lot of people will get disappointed because they wanted the sales. I've learned to break that down into micro steps. So I start to look at it from the perspective of, okay, what are all the optimization points and the conversion points? And now, how many of those did I succeed in based on the volume of traffic flow? And based on what's working, how can I leave those elements while optimizing these other elements? Because I got success here. This is successful. Like, this is actual success, this part. So I'm happy about that. But these parts are not. So stuff like that, you create these little, I wouldn't call it games, actually. It's more of a rational way of looking at reality, right? You know,
you are a brilliant mind. I won't just grab you.
So this is the interesting thing, is that I learned a lot of these things just through focus of self-evaluation and the very things that I was working on, right? And then when you start to recognize that it works in this area, it also works in another area. So that's what creates this I won't say illusion of brilliant mind, but this is what creates this perception of a brilliant mind.
No, it's not an illusion. Now, imposter syndrome, huh?
You want to see how well I handle criticism?
Yeah, I'm testing you. Right. So Joseph, if we have anyone, especially here in Europe, in Barcelona, that would like to contact you, or I know you do also some speaker engagements, you have multifacets, you have all the trainings, but you also are in events and so on, speaking to large audiences, conferences. So if anyone wants to contact you, hire you, what's the process? What should they go through, to an email, to your site? What's the best way?
You can go to my website, josephrodrigues.com. There's a contact form there.
Yeah.
And,
okay. There's a contact form. Okay. We will add also to the channel today all the information, so everyone can check here on video. But I'll leave the information from your site and obviously your YouTube channel. Any other? And that's it. So from the website is the best way. Just leave the.
I have the other site, the online training for entrepreneurs. It has a little chat box on it. If I'm online and working, it'll say online. You can drop me a message on there.
Really? Oh,
a little chat thing on there. If I'm not around, it'll say away, and I would just get the message. But those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me, is the josephrodrigues.com or that online training for entrepreneurs site.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So, my dear Joseph, if you are coming to Barcelona this August this year, and I take you to surf, we're gonna give a gift to your followers. I wanted to make a promise right here. I'm gonna record you, and we're gonna post this video online.
Are we gonna start a YouTube channel on learning how to surf?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Step by step, and I'll be.
You'd be the surfing coach, and I would be the trainee, and I would go through the process of. And then it would be like a whatever 50 part for me to learn how to surf, maybe 100 part.
Well, it always starts how to fall. I remember when I was teaching my husband, I said, you have to learn how to fall, because if you fall, depending how you do, you can really hurt yourself. So like everything,
that's very metaphorical for business too. You got to learn how to fall, right?
Very metaphorical. I knew you would say that. So Joseph, thank you so much.
You don't need to hang out with me.
Wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you next time soon, hopefully in Barcelona. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Looking forward to more, much more. Come on, kisses. French kisses.
4 or 5 times.
5 times. Oh my goodness.